In the heart of South Philly, where the streets hummed with ambition and grit, the old Victory Pulse gym stood as a battered beacon of hope. Its walls, stained with decades of sweat and dreams, echoed with the rhythmic thump of heavy bags and the sharp crack of gloves meeting flesh. For Caleb Jones, a 19-year-old black kid from the neighborhood, this gym was his sanctuary. Lean and wiry, with eyes that burned with quiet determination, Caleb had been coming here since he was 12, dodging punches and life's harder blows. Boxing was his way out, his ticket to a future where he wasn't just another statistic. But not everyone saw Caleb's fire as a gift. Coach Ed Harris, a grizzled ex-fighter with a chip on his shoulder and a history of picking favorites, ran the gym like his personal fiefdom. Ed was old school, the kind of man who'd spit on the floor and call it cleaning. To him, Caleb was an outsider, a kid who didn't belong in his ring. It wasn't just Caleb's skill. His lightning-fast jabs or footwork that danced circles around Ed's chosen prospects, that grated on the coach. It was his skin. Ed's sneers and slurs, thinly veiled as tough love, were a daily ritual. "You think you're a champ? You ain't nothin' but a shadow, boy," he'd growl, his voice dripping with venom. The other fighters, mostly white kids Ed had handpicked, followed his lead, mocking Caleb during sparring, landing cheap shots when the coach's back was turned. Caleb took it all in silence, his jaw tight, his focus razor sharp. He wasn't here to make friends, he was here to win. But the abuse was wearing him down. One humid July evening, after a brutal session where Ed had paired him with a heavyweight who accidentally elbowed him in the ribs, Caleb sat in the locker room, head in his hands. His ribs ached, but the real pain was deeper. He was starting to believe Ed's words, maybe he didn't belong. Across the gym, in a shadowed corner where the speed bag hung still, Jason Statham was working through his own routine. The action star, known for his roles as a hard-hitting everyman, had been training at Victory Pulse for weeks, preparing for a new film. At 58, Statham was still a machine, muscles taut, movements precise, his focus unshakable. He kept to himself, offering only nods to the regulars, but he'd noticed Caleb. The kid's speed, his heart, his refusal to quit despite the odds stacked against him, it reminded Statham of his own scrappy days diving into London's underground fight scene. He'd also seen Ed's cruelty, the way the coach singled Caleb out, the way the others laughed when Caleb took a hit. That evening, as the gym emptied out, Ed decided to push Caleb one step too far. "Hey, Shadow," Ed called, his voice cutting through the hum of fluorescent lights. "You're sparring again. Ryan's gonna teach you a lesson." Ryan, a hulking 24-year-old with a mean streak, grinned as he laced up his gloves. Caleb, exhausted and bruised, stood up slowly, his eyes flickering with defiance but also doubt. The ring was cleared, and the few remaining fighters gathered, sensing blood in the water. The sparring wasn't sparring, it was a beatdown. Ryan, egged on by Ed's shouts of "hit him harder," threw wild, illegal punches. A hook clipped Caleb's jaw, sending him stumbling. A low blow landed when the ref, a buddy of Ed's, wasn't looking. Caleb gritted his teeth, dodging what he could, but the ring felt like a cage. Ed's laughter rang out, cold and cruel. "You're done, kid. Pack your bags." That's when Statham, wiping sweat from his brow with a towel, stepped out of the shadows. His presence shifted the air in the gym. Heads turned. The man wasn't just a celebrity, he moved with the quiet menace of someone who'd seen real fights, not just choreographed ones. He tossed the towel aside and climbed into the ring, his voice low but commanding. "Enough." Ed scoffed, crossing his arms. "This ain't your business, movie star. Stick to your scripts." Statham's eyes locked onto Ed's, unblinking. "You're not running a gym. You're running a bully factory. And I'm not here for sport, I'm here for him." He nodded toward Caleb, who stood panting, blood trickling from a cut above his eye. The gym fell silent. Ryan, still in the ring, smirked, sizing Statham up. "You wanna go, old man?" he taunted, bouncing on his toes. Statham didn't flinch. "I don't fight for fun, kid. But if you want to test me, I'll make it quick." Ed, sensing a challenge to his authority, barked, "Get him out of my ring." But Statham wasn't moving. Instead, he turned to Caleb, his voice steady. "You're better than this place, mate. You've got heart, more than any of these cowards. Don't let them break you." Caleb, still catching his breath, met Statham's gaze. For the first time in months, he felt seen, not as a target, but as a fighter. Something in him stirred, a spark reigniting. Ed wasn't done. "You think you're some hero?" he spat at Statham. "This is my gym. My rules." He signaled to Ryan, who lunged at Statham with a sloppy right hook. The move was telegraphed, and Statham sidestepped with the ease of a man who'd spent years mastering his craft. In one fluid motion, he caught Ryan's arm, twisted it behind his back, and dropped him to his knees with a controlled but firm push. The gym gasped. Statham didn't stop there. He stepped out of the ring and walked straight toward Ed, who took a step back, his bravado faltering. "You're done pushing this kid around," Statham said, his voice like gravel. "You either start coaching everyone fair, or you're out of a job. I know the owner. One call, and you're history." Ed's face twisted with rage, but he knew Statham wasn't bluffing. The gym's owner, a local businessman, had been thrilled to have a star like Statham training there. One word from him, and Ed's reign would end. The coach muttered something under his breath and stormed off, leaving the gym in stunned silence. Caleb, still in the ring, wiped the blood from his face. Statham climbed back in, offering him a hand. "You all right, mate?" he asked, his tone softer now. Caleb nodded, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why'd you do that?" "You didn't have to." Statham shrugged, a small smile breaking through. "Because I've been where you are. And someone once stood up for me. Now it's your turn to keep fighting, not just in here, but out there." He gestured toward the world beyond the gym's walls. Over the next few weeks, things changed. Ed toned down his act, wary of Statham's threat. Caleb trained harder than ever, his confidence growing under Statham's occasional guidance. The star wasn't a coach, but he'd spar with Caleb, offering tips on footwork and timing, sharing stories of his own struggles. The other fighters, seeing Caleb's resilience, began to respect him. Some even apologized, quietly, for following Ed's lead.